Ever get that feeling that maybe a few people have just a bit too much say in, how things are run?
That feeling, yeah. It's something a lot of people seem to connect with.
That some voices just seem louder. Well, that's pretty much exactly what we're digging into today.
It's interesting you say feeling because, well, the source we're looking at today suggests there's more to it than just a hunch. It's about observable trends.
Exactly. We've got this news article here dated April 30th, 2025. The headline is, "The Fight Against Oligarchy. Sanders and AOC's 2025 tour hits Bakersfield."
Right, so focusing on that specific moment in time and that specific event.
Yeah, think of this as your quick way to get up to speed on the main arguments, the motivations behind this tour they did.
And our mission for this deep dive, so to speak.
Good question. It's really to get a handle on what Sanders and AOC meant by oligarchy, why they were so concerned about it, and, importantly, why Bakersfield, why that stop.
Okay, so context is key here. This tour didn't just pop up out of nowhere, did it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The article makes it really clear that the political atmosphere in 2025 was still very much shaped by what came before.
Specifically mentioning the Trump administration's impact and how it, well, deepened some existing societal divides.
Right. And the article sort of paints this picture of a country where those divisions led to a lot of people seriously questioning, who holds power and how are they using it.
Which in turn fueled the growth of movements pushing back against that kind of concentrated control.
Exactly. So when Sanders and AOC use that word oligarchy, what's the article say they're actually pointing to?
According to the piece, it's about the increasing concentration of wealth, yes, but also political power among a relatively small group.
Okay, so wealth and power.
Yes. And the tour's main goal, as the article puts it, was to basically wake people up to the potential threats this poses, to the democratic system itself.
What kind of threats are we talking about?
The core worry highlighted is that it undermines equal representation, that it leads to policies that maybe disproportionately benefit the wealthy few, not the many.
So it's not just about being rich, it's about that wealth translating into, undue political influence.
Precisely. And the article says the tour wasn't just about talking. They had specific objectives.
Right. Advocating for actual changes.
Systemic reforms.
Yes, systemic reforms. Plus, promoting economic policies aimed squarely at the working class. And crucially, trying to galvanize grassroots movements.
Get people organized on the ground.
Yeah, to act as a counterweight, basically.
And the article mentions specific policy areas tied to this fight against oligarchy.
It does. It points to things like wealth redistribution, healthcare reform, and making education more accessible.
Okay, so those aren't just random policies. They're framed as direct answers to this concentration of power.
Exactly. And if you look at the political landscape described for 2025 in the article, you can kind of see why these issues might have landed.
How so? Well, it talks about this growing sense among voters of feeling disconnected, like maybe politics wasn't really serving them.
Focus too much on the elites, perhaps.
That's the sense the article conveys. And this feeling apparently led to more support for, local initiatives, progressive ideas, candidates pushing for change.
It sounds like a real shift in priorities was happening. The article flags healthcare access, educational equity, even climate change.
Right. Issues moving to the forefront, reflecting this desire for policies with broader benefits, not just for a select group.
And this wasn't just a fringe thing.
Not according to the article. It suggests this shift was widespread enough that even more established politicians were starting to, pay attention, reevaluating their own platforms.
Which sets the stage nicely for why a tour explicitly about fighting oligarchy might find an audience.
Exactly. It tapped into something that was already brewing.
Okay, let's zoom in on that one tour stop.
Yep.
Bakersfield. The article really emphasizes this wasn't just a pin on a map. Why Bakersfield?
The article positions Bakersfield as strategically vital. It argues that its demographics and its economy kind of mirrored the big national challenges.
A microcosm, you said earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially on income inequality and healthcare access. These issues were apparently really visible there.
How so? What were the specifics for Bakersfield?
Well, the piece details significant economic hardship for a large part of the population. Things like limited job opportunities, low wages.
And the article connects that to national policies.
It does. It suggests these local struggles reflect broader economic policies that tend to favor, corporate interests over workers, creating this widening gap.
A gap between the well-off and those struggling, right there in the city.
Yes. And healthcare was another big piece. The article describes similar struggles to the national picture, problems with access, high costs, not enough insurance.
Making it a powerful place to illustrate the very problems they wanted to address nationally.
Absolutely. So strategically, going there wasn't just about publicity.
What was the goal then, according to the article?
It suggests the aim was to connect with and energize voters who were directly feeling the pinch of these economic and healthcare issues.
To build solidarity, maybe? Foster collective action?
Precisely. To make the case for reform feel urgent and real to people experiencing those challenges firsthand.
Okay, so that explains Bakersfield. Now, what about the vision Sanders and AOC were presenting? How does the article frame them?
It positions them as, well, a pretty significant force really confronting these deep-seated inequalities and what they saw as the grip of oligarchy.
And it highlights common ground in their platforms.
Definitely. The article emphasizes shared pillars: universal health care, a big focus on climate justice, and strong support for labor rights.
These are the core elements of their proposed alternative, then.
Essentially, yes, presented as the foundation for a more equitable America.
Let's break those down a bit. Universal health care, what did that look like in their proposal based on the article?
The article focuses on their push for a Medicare for all system, key aspects being getting rid of out-of-pocket costs for patients.
Which is huge for access.
Right. And also, significantly, reducing the influence of corporations within the healthcare sector itself, addressing those health outcome disparities.
Making sure money isn't the deciding factor in getting care.
Mm.
Okay, what about climate justice? The Green New Deal comes up.
It does. The article explains it as not just about environment, but also justice. So, big investments in renewable energy, creating green jobs, but also specifically addressing how environmental damage often hits marginalized communities hardest. So it's climate action and social fairness.
And how does that connect back to oligarchy?
Well, the implied argument in the article is that shifting away from fossil fuels also challenges the power base of some very large established industries.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third pillar was labor rights. What did the article say about their focus there?
The emphasis, according to the piece, was on strengthening protections for workers. Things like empowering unions, raising the minimum wage, pushing for better job security.
Basically trying to rebalance the scales a bit more towards working people.
That's the core idea presented. Creating a fairer economy.
The article also mentions something about unity, doesn't it, among progressive groups?
Yes, it underscores that. Suggesting the tour was partly about showing a united front among those challenging the existing system.
Projecting solidarity.
Right, which leads naturally into the next point. The article stresses the power of grassroots movements.
The people on the ground doing the organizing.
Exactly. The article calls them the backbone, really, the engine for political change and community engagement.
Does he give examples from Bakersfield?
It does, yeah. It mentions groups like the local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, various climate action groups active there.
And what were they actually doing?
Things you might expect. Community forums, educational workshops, voter registration drives, all aimed at, raising awareness and empowering local voices.
Giving people tools and platforms to influence local policy.
Precisely. There's even a specific anecdote in the article about an activist, Sarah Johnson, and how community pressure led to a new local policy on affordable housing, a concrete result.
That really brings it home, doesn't it? Shows the tangible impact.
It does. And there was another interesting example, local artists and activists collaborating on murals.
Using art for political expression?
Yeah, weaving that desire for change right into the visual culture of the community. The article suggests all this local energy really highlighted the potential of the tour itself.
But of course, pushing for big changes like this,
yeah,
it's not going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Did the article talk about expected challenges?
Oh, definitely. It anticipated hurdles. Firstly, opposition from conservative groups wasn't unexpected. Counter rallies, opposing narratives, that sort of thing.
Political pushback.
Right. And then there were just the sheer logistics of a multi-city tour. Permits, security, managing crowds, finding venues.
A massive organizational effort.
Huge. And coordinating with all the local networks involved.
Plus, in today's world, there's always the information battleground.
Exactly. The article specifically flags the risk of misinformation, especially online, on social media.
So they'd need a strong communication strategy.
Crucial. Clear, transparent messaging to cut through the noise and counter any misleading narratives.
Okay, so back to Bakersfield specifically. What was the vibe? How did people there actually react when the tour was announced?
The article describes it as, well, mixed. A lot of enthusiasm from supporters, definitely.
High expectations.
Yeah, really hoping for serious talk about inequality, corporate influence, those kinds of things, feeling energized by the proposals.
But not everyone was on board.
No. The article also mentions skepticism from some locals, questions about, are these policies actually feasible? What would the consequences be?
So it sparked debate.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
The article suggests this mix actually led to some pretty robust constructive conversations between people with different viewpoints.
And how did the organizers try to maximize engagement?
Social media was one tool, using hashtags, trying to build online buzz, but also, crucially, working closely with those local grassroots groups we mentioned.
Tapping into the existing networks.
Right, to reach more people directly within the community.
Okay, so stepping back from Bakersfield now, what about the bigger picture? What did the article suggest were the wider potential implications of this whole tour?
It framed the tour as more than just a series of rallies. It saw it as a potential catalyst, especially looking ahead to the 2026 elections.
How so? Influencing voters.
Potentially, yes. By hitting these core economic issues so directly, the idea was it could really shift voter sentiment, maybe nationwide.
And what about impact within the Democratic Party?
That's another key point the article raises. It suggests the tour could push the party's overall platform more towards populism, a greater focus on these economic justice themes.
By energizing that wing of the party and making those issues central.
Exactly, putting pressure on the party leadership and platform committees.
And beyond elections and party politics.
The article floats the idea that it could inspire similar grassroots efforts elsewhere. Local groups across the country feeling empowered to challenge the status quo in their own communities.
So a ripple effect.
Potentially. The article sort of ends that section suggesting this could contribute to a more lasting shift in the political landscape beyond just one election cycle.
Okay, so let's quickly tie this all together. We've looked at the article's take on the oligarchy concerns driving the tour.
The reasons behind that Bakersfield stop specifically.
The core vision Sanders and AOC were putting forward: healthcare, climate, labor.
Right, and the absolutely vital role of those grassroots movements.
Plus the challenges they faced, the local reaction in Bakersfield.
And finally, those potentially broader long-term implications.
It's fascinating how one article can capture so much about the political moment, isn't it? From the big anxieties down to local action.
It really paints a detailed picture of that specific time and those specific actors.
Absolutely. And for you listening, we really hope this deep dive has helped clarify these, pretty complex dynamics and the different perspectives involved.
Yeah, understanding the arguments and the context.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, something for you to chew on.
Yeah, it's a big question, really. When you see significant economic disparities in a democracy, what role do you think grassroots movements and just individual engagement actually play in shaping that balance of power?
How much difference can it make? Definitely something to mull over after hearing about this push against what they termed oligarchy back in 2025.